Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to change your chord progressions around so they don't suck. So we're going to take a basic chord progression and change some of the notes around and some other things with the chords so it sounds way better. So right now I've just recorded one of the most overused basic chord progressions. Here's what it sounds like. It's so basic, it makes me want to throw up hearing that chord progression. Like if I hear a song with that chord progression in it, you can almost guarantee I'm going to turn it off. It's just so overused and boring and bland. But fortunately, we can actually keep the same chord progression technically, and just by changing some notes around and some little tricks, we can make it sound way better. So let's copy this MIDI file over here and mess around with it. So the one thing we know we want to do is keep the bass note of each chord at the bottom of the chord. So we keep the same chords, but we'll change the notes on top around. So I'm going to take all these bass notes and move them an octave down. Alright, so now what we're going to look for is some type of commonality between the top notes of the chords. Like you see how this note jumps down here, then back up to there. We're gonna make that so the chords don't take as big of leaps between the top notes. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna change some notes around. And what changing the voicing of a chord means is just moving certain notes an octave up or down. So how I'm gonna do that is, say this chord, I'm gonna wanna move both these notes in this chord an octave up. Then I'm gonna do the same thing with this chord, and this one here too. So this note seems like it's going to be a little too high for what we're trying to do, so I'm going to move it back down an octave. So I'll show you what it sounds like now. It's not good yet, but it'll be a little better. So it's still just the basic chords, it's still bland and boring. So what we're going to want to do is change some of the chords to different types of chords, like seventh chords, or suspended second chords to make them sound more interesting. So as an example, this first chord, because it's just a basic major chord, we can make it into a suspended second chord by using one of the root notes and moving it up one whole step in the scale. So this note right here is the same as my bass note. So the bass note's already playing that C, so instead of keeping this note up here on the same C, I'm going to move it up a step to the D. And what that does is make it a suspended second chord. So it's going to sound a little more interesting now. Alright, so now we've got a suspended second chord there. So now what I'm going to do with this A minor chord over here is change it so it's an A minor seventh chord to make it more interesting too. And how you do that is you take one of the root notes, so it's an A, but we're not going to mess with the root note. We're going to take the A from up here, and we're going to move it down a step in the scale to make it a seventh chord. So now it's an A minor seventh. So for good measure, I'm going to change the last chord a little bit too to make it more interesting. I'm just going to take this top note here and keep it in line with the other top notes, which actually turns it into another suspended second chord. So what we're doing here is keeping the transitions between the top notes the same throughout the whole chord progression. So instead of having the jumps like we did here, now the top of every chord is playing the exact same note. So now it's easier on the listener's ears when the chord changes. And we use some clever songwriting and music theory tips like changing the chords to seventh chords and suspended second chords to make it work. So now here's what the chord progression will sound like. So to compare that with what we originally had, I'll play both of them back to back. So you can see by just changing a few quick notes around and changing the voicings of the chords and some of the notes, it'll make your chord progression sound way more interesting. I definitely recommend you try this out with your own chords. It'll make your whole song sound better. You can also make these chords sound even bigger by layering some voices on these chords even more. So what I'm going to do is take some of these an octave down. And I'm just going to mess around with some things and have it go up an octave in some places to make the chord sound pretty big. So now let's hear what these chords sound like with just some of the notes copied an octave up. Now these chords are sounding really big. You don't want to overdo that, but that's just an example of how you can change some notes around to make the chord sound bigger too. Alright, that's it for this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify below to stay up to date with what I'm doing. Other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.